Okay, we are in chapter 6, text 7, but we're doing a little bit of recap right now with text 6. So, text 6 is about controlling the mind. And generally speaking, when we have problems, when we have feelings of unsatisfact, you know, unsatisfactory feelings of happiness, distress, whatever. Generally speaking, when we look at our mind, when we look at our own heart, we can see the answers are generally there. In my growing up years of Krishna consciousness, a lot of times I would run to my mentor and ask him, like, Prabhuji, somebody said such and such things, and somebody did such and such things, and I'd be complaining, and he, being my mentor, would say, well, what they said is not nice, and that's not something they should do. But why are you feeling bad? What is inside you that is making you feel bad about it? Why are you feeling sad? And he would push me to go deep inside and see what is within you that is giving out this feeling. And I would go deep inside, and a lot of times the reason for it is like my ego has been hurt, or I'm looking for recognition, or I want to have a certain portrayal of my image, of being somebody who's good, honest, ethical, whatever, right? And that's not being fulfilled. And then he would tell me, why does it matter that somebody thinks you are this or that? Is Krishna happy with your service? Are you happy with your service? Isn't that all that matters? Or is it that you need everybody to recognize you and clap for you? I was like, oh, okay, yeah, true. If somebody thinks I'm a fool or somebody thinks I'm a rascal, what difference does it make? Because what I am doing, I'm giving my 100%, and I'm doing it as a service to Krishna. And between me and Krishna, if both of us are good, it really doesn't matter if somebody is trying to make me feel bad. And once I got a hold of that, it made me a very, internally very robust and powerful. Uh, no matter what people say or do, especially now that I live a much more public life, uh, there's a lot of people on social media say a lot of terrible things, a lot of good things, more good things than bad things, thankfully. But still, some are very hurtful. But it doesn't stick for too long because, again, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing it for the right purpose? If I am, somebody says something else, it's okay. That person is having a bad day and they're just letting me hear the bad, whatever is in their heart. And that's okay. I'm happy to take that. And that's not me. That's not who I am. That's their perception of me, or that's they just having a bad day. So when you go through that, when you have control over your mind and you don't let your mind overcome you, that's a very powerful place to be, where you have control over your life, your mind, how you feel. You have control over that. Rather than waiting for somebody else to glorify you and make you happy, you have control over yourself, where you don't need other people's approval. You don't need other people to validate you. You don't need others to recognize you. You know who you are, and you're strong in your position. Generally, people get upset is because they're insecure in their position. They need constant validity and approval from family members, from friends, from spouse, from their kids, whoever, right? So they're constantly giving the remote control of their lives in the hands of other people, right? Bhagavad Gita is empowering us. Krishna is saying, controlled mind is your best friend, because your best friend helps you become self-empowered, right? A good mentor is someone who helps you become self-empowered. You don't need a mentor. Uh, uh, Not like you don't need a mentor, but in the sense like you don't need a mentor to kind of tell you, go right, go left, do this, do that for the rest of your life. Eventually you get it, right? This is the right thing to do. This is, not so positive outcome. And this is in using your intelligence, understanding the principles, you can take life decisions moving on. And of course, when things get complicated, you get help from your mentor. But the point is, you don't have to be spoon fed all your life. Somebody is not a good mentor or not a good parent. What do they end up doing? They tell you everything what to do. Do this and do that and do this, and they control you and they own you and they get attached to you. And eventually they want to kind of mold your life the way they want to do it. And then you feel suffocated, and they feel, you're not being in control, and there's a whole falling apart. And we see this mostly with parents, uh, you know, uh, because most people don't have mentors. But the point is, a good mentor or a good parent is somebody who allows you to breathe, allows you to become free, independent, intelligent, and living on your own terms. following the principles with your own intelligence, right? All right. Bitan is asking, how do we know, feel Krishna is satisfied from our service? So we have our line of um, validity, right? So the disciplic succession. So our mentor, our guru, etc. We should always, if we are in doubt, we can run things by. Like, am I doing the right thing? Am I going too far? Is this pleasing to Krishna or is this not? Right? And you will get your answer. But generally speaking, using your intelligence, if you are hurting somebody, if you're making somebody cry, is Krishna pleased with you? Right? Obviously, it's not a very pleasing thing for anyone. What to speak of Krishna, who is the father of all living beings. So some things are very obvious, some things are not. Like when you're in a business situation, you're a CEO and you have to hire and fire people. Some people are going to be happy, some people are not going to be happy with the decision. What do you do? Are you doing the right thing? Are you doing the best you can in that situation? It might not be best for everyone, but is it the best you can do in that situation? Are you giving 100% or are you being arrogant, right? So there's always that check, uh, that you, if you feel there's a doubt in your heart that you need guidance, and get it validated by somebody you trust, somebody who's spiritually aligned with the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, right? Okay. So in this verse, Krishna is saying, text 7, for one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat or cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. Does anybody remember this text 7 has a very, very similar tone to a previous verse? Does anybody recall which verse that is? I'll give
Yes,
it.
Prabhuji.
Yeah, go ahead.
Matra spashu tupante shitoshna shukra
Right.
agam painam tamgitsha.
Text 2, chapter 2, text 14. So there also Krishna is saying the very something similar, that as soon as your senses come in contact with the sense object, there's two outcomes, happiness or distress. Generally, we expect happiness always, which is not realistic. And as a result, when there is distress, we get upset. Why is it not a happy outcome the way I wanted it? So Krishna is saying it's always changing. Happiness, distress, right? Just like changing seasons, Shita Ushna, cold, warm, winter season, summer season, day, night. It's always, time is cyclical. It's cycling through. There's this and then there is that. So similarly, happiness, sometimes there's good times, sometimes there's bad times. And after good times comes bad times, after bad times come good times. And that's how change is the only constant in our life. Krishna is saying it. And here again, Krishna is repeating in those same words, similar words rather, that for one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached. And for he has attained tranquility. What is tranquility? Does anybody know? Prashantasya, prashanta, right? Feeling of satisfaction, feeling of I am fully happy, I'm blissful. Na hankering, na kankshati, na shochati, right? Not lamenting about the past, not hankering about the future. You're in the present, completely satisfied. That's called tranquility. Satisfied in what? Satisfied in your relationship with Krishna, and thereby satisfied with everything that life has to offer you, right? Because your root is being watered, so you're fully nourished. And when you're fully nourished, then you're happy. When you're fully nourished, you don't need hankering for I want this, I want this, I want that, right? You're nourished, you're happy. Just like after eating, you're fully satisfied. You feel a sense of completeness. You feel nourished. You don't want to eat anymore, right? You're not looking for one more snack, something else, something else. So, like that, when we are in Krishna consciousness, we have reached control over our mind, is because we have reached a connection, yoga, right? A connection with Krishna. And once the connection is solidly placed, we have control over mind and senses, we are satisfied, and we have control over our lives, right? When you're not satisfied, guess what? It's easy to exploit you. When you're not satisfied with the money you make, The boss can exploit you and tell you, hey, want more money, want more bonus, work harder, work 80 hours a week, 100 hours a week, and you might get that bonus. Might, right? You want something more mundane, you know, a husband or a wife, a spouse can exploit that tendency. Like, oh, you want this? Get me this, and you will get it, right? So in any relationship, when there is a hankering, there's room for exploitation. But when you're fully satisfied, you're not hankering, then you can do what you want, regardless of what people are offering you or not. Most powerful people fall down because of either money or sex, right? Either they fall into a trap in this one or that one. And that's because there is a hankering within. Even though they have everything, there is a hankering within, and somebody taps in that weakness, and boom, this person eventually spirals down into a download, a bad situation. Now, but those who are Raja Rishi, right, saintly leaders, Raja Rishi, king as well as a saint, such persons like Sita Devi's father, Janak Maharaj, such persons, they cannot be moved, they cannot be bribed, they cannot be coerced, they cannot be exploited, they cannot be forced, they cannot be fearfully, subjugated, because they're fully satisfied. That's the power of being connected with the Supreme. Is you are in control. You are not in need of anything that anybody can offer. You do what you want to do. So for one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached. That means Paramatma already reached. And for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. Right? Honor and dishonor, all the same. Imagine. That's powerful. Powerful place to be. Actually, every living entity is intended to abide by the dictation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated in everyone's heart as Paramatma. When the mind is misled by external illusory energy, one becomes entangled in material activities. Therefore, as soon as one's mind is controlled through one of the yoga systems, one should be considered to have already reached the destination. One has to abide by superior dictation. When one's mind is fixed on the superior nature, he has no alternative but to follow the dictation of the Supreme. The mind must admit some superior dictation and follow it. So it is important for us to accept some authority. Again, coming back to entrepreneurship, since most of you are entrepreneurs, one thing you'd notice when you become your own boss, there's a sense of feeling lost. And that sense of feeling lost is because nobody's telling me what to do. Am I doing the right thing? Am I going in the right direction? Who do I ask? And who do I, or sometimes it's overconfidence where like, I know exactly what I need to do. And then you're very confidently going towards the ditch, right? And then somewhere in the middle where people have a healthy level of, questioning spirit, and thus they seek out experts who can guide them through the process, somebody who's been through the process. And that's very, very important. So accepting somebody as a higher authority is important, whether it's your parents or a mentor or obviously God. It's important to have somebody up there. So at the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada in the introduction mentioned that even if you don't believe in Krishna or don't believe in God, for understanding the Bhagavad Gita, at least theoretically accept the fact Krishna is God. Otherwise, this Bhagavad Gita won't make sense, because unless Krishna is accepted as superior, Amit, you are, let me mute you. Okay. So unless you accept somebody as superior in the Bhagavad Gita, accept Krishna as superior, you will not give credence to his words, and thus it doesn't make sense, the conversation that's happening between Krishna and Arjuna. It's just another guy's opinion. But when you understand, at least accept theoretically, that this is the personality of Godhead, this is somebody of authority who has created the creation, then the person who has designed this entire process, his words have value because he knows how the process works, right? So at least theoretically, we should accept authority. And eventually, going through the 700 verses, hopefully, we come to the conclusion Krishna is God, just like Arjuna, right? Like, this makes sense. But the point is, without that sense of authority, we don't go anywhere in life. So somebody needs to follow somebody. Somebody needs to follow somebody, and that's how life becomes a lot easier to go. Especially in the Vedic wisdom, the common example that's given is when you're lost in a forest. How do you get out of the forest? You try to find a path that has been walked on. There's all these grass and foliage, but then there you find, okay, this is a place where there's not much grass. And that means there has been some steps been taken. Some people have walked through this. So if I walk on this path, I might get out of the forest and not be lost. So in Vedic terms, that is called Mahajana Gata Hupantaha. Like you walk in the steps of the Mahajanas, the great personalities, like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, great personalities. What they have done, we follow in their footsteps. And thereby we are able to get out of the forest where we are lost, right? So it is important to have authorities in our spiritual life, authorities in our business life, authorities in our personal life, right? So that we know what to follow, how to follow somebody who has done it before successfully, following them rather than reinventing the wheel. And that's why the importance of guru in our lives. The effect of controlling the mind is that one automatically follows the dictation of the Paramatma or super soul, because this transcendental position is at once achieved by one who is in Krishna consciousness. The devotee of the Lord is unaffected by the dualities of material existence, namely distress, happiness, cold, heat, etc. This state is practically samadhi or absorption in the supreme. So samadhi is not just closing your eyes and not breathing and all that. Samadhi is being completely equipoised to happiness, distress, fame, infamy, insult, adoration, etc., etc. Dualities don't bother you. That doesn't mean you're stone. That's not what is being spoken here. Otherwise, every stone would be the biggest yogi ever. That's not what's being spoken here. But the point is, you don't identify with what people call you externally. You identify with your spiritual nature, and you identify with God, who you're part of spiritually, right? So your identification. So if a homeless man, who is mad, crazy, a beggar on the street, calls you, "Hey, Nehru, what's going on?" Right? You will like, you're crazy, because although it's appreciation perhaps, it's not something you take seriously. Or the same beggar says, "You moron, you rascal, you die." You will like, yeah, whatever. He's not happy with his life. He's mentally retarded. Moving on. So similarly, it's not like you start looking at people as mentally retarded. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm trying to say here is just like that person's words don't matter to you, because that person is in a different consciousness. So similarly, when a person is in a materialistic consciousness, and from that vantage point, they say something nice or not so nice. Like somebody says, "You're very beautiful." After 10 years, you might not look as beautiful, right? Or somebody says, "You're very wealthy." That might fluctuate over time. So you don't take those things seriously, appreciation or not. You say, "Thank you very much," and you move on with life. Why? Because you know what is what. Krishna is saying, happiness, distress, changing seasons. Everything changes in this world. So you don't get puffed up and like, "Oh, I'm so great," or, "Oh, I'm so fallen." You know who you are and your real identity, and you move with that identity. And that doesn't let you become too proud or so humble that people walk all over you, right? You have your spiritual identity, your self-esteem is very, very strong. Any questions so far?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Just one question. So, as you had mentioned that one does not identify him or herself with any of the external, factors. Does the same apply for, like spiritual process as well? So let us say, you identify yourself with the disciplic succession, or you identify yourself with a particular sect or a religion of some sort. Does it also come into account with this?
Yes, it does. So, for example, once you come to Krishna consciousness, you realize it's more about spirituality than rituals, right? And you might go home and people are like, oh, you're not doing this and you're not doing that mantra and you're not right feet, left feet, blah, 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 blah. And, you suddenly you're kind of following the Bhagavad Gita. And whereas maybe your spiritual upbringing is a little bit more ritualistic, something that you don't understand and you don't want to follow, and you will be rebuked for it. That's okay. It doesn't matter because they're following something that's dogmatic in a dogmatic way. Doesn't mean you have to do it. And for that, you might have to take some insultation and whatever. That's okay. Moving on. Eventually, they will understand why you're doing what you're doing. Like when I took off I'm born a Brahmin. When I took off my sacred thread, understanding that I'm not qualified to wear that. I don't have the qualities of a Brahmana. I had to hear a lot of things, including from my dear relatives. But I understood that they don't understand, and that's okay. Eventually, they will. And if I become an exemplary person, eventually they'll come to appreciate my honesty, right? And it did happen, right? So it's like that, Dharma rakshati rakshati. You uphold dharma, and dharma will uphold you, protect you. So it does apply to in that aspect as well. Did I get your question? Did I answer it correctly?
Actually, I was thinking more in terms of even if you identify, I mean, you kind of tend to even identify yourself with Bhagavad Gita, right? So that is also a sense of sort. I mean,
That's
what do you
Krishna's
say?
word.
A point of. Okay. So, okay, got it, too, got it.
It's Krishna's words. So it couldn't be more purer than that.
Right.
Okay. And okay, Bitan is asking, Prabhu, often my mind thinks, yes, you do service for Krishna, but for some time satisfy yourself. Can you please guide me, Prabhu, little how to control my mind here? You know what? At your stage, it's okay. Don't force yourself. Krishna will purify you. You are not a pure devotee, so yeah, little for Krishna, little for me, little for Krishna, little for me, and that's okay. Slowly, it'll be more Krishna, less me. Sometimes it'll be more me, less Krishna. But eventually, if you're sincere, Krishna will guide you through the process. You don't have to artificially, feel bad about yourself or whatever. Don't worry about it. You're doing good for your age and your stage.
Good evening. Good evening, sir.
Hi, Sai.
So, my question was, how do we maintain our humility, like humbleness at workplace, like without allowing our ego or anxiety, there's a lot of negative, energy in workplace, right? So, how do we maintain?
So there's a lot of layers there. So let me take one thing at a time. How do we maintain humility? Just understand that whatever things you have to be proud of, whether it's your ability, your intelligence, your skills, your position, it can be taken away at any moment, right? So humility is honesty, knowing that it's all coming from as a gift from Krishna. It's part of your karma as well, and it can change. So be down to earth. Like if it changes, if something goes bad, right? If you're a proud person, what happens? People wait for when will you fall, and that's when you go. Look at you. What happened? Ha, gotcha. See, you were so proud of your this and that.
तो बोल देगा गलती से किए गलती से किया तो बेटा गलती से क्या प्रूव करो गलती हुआ
Wow. Okay. So that's the part, right? So it's intelligent to be humble. It's honest to be humble, because anything we are proud of can be taken away and it's temporary. Whether it's good looks, Janma Aishwarya Sruta Shri, our education, our good looks, our whatever, achievements, everything can change over time. We do one mistake in our life, one scandal, and all the good things you've done might be thrown in the trash bin, right? So it's important that we understand that and we stay down to earth. So when times are bad, we are not, it doesn't hurt as much when you're down to earth. And when times are good, you don't get inflated, up in the sky. So it's intelligent to be humble. And then you mentioned workplace, ego, anxiety. Anxiety is a whole different thing. So anxiety of what? and I'm not asking you, you don't have to publicly tell me your anxiety, but generally speaking, the anxiety is, will I have this job? Will I get the promotion? Will I get the work done? Will I, whatever, right? Will I meet the deadline, etc.
Like getting work done, like work not happening according to time. Yeah.
Correct. Correct. So one thing that will help you is planning, right? When you have a job, break it down, time it out, and plan it out so that you do meet your deadline and not doing it at the last minute. So that's a good practice to have. Prioritizing to make sure that uh, this is this deadline is earlier or later, but this is more important. So let me start working on this immediately. So prioritize what you want to get done, right? And most importantly, pray to Krishna. My dear Krishna, please give me the intelligence and the ability with which I can get this thing done in the right time with the right way. May let this be your glorification. If I do something nice and I get that credit, let me offer that credit to you. Let that be your glorification, since I am your devotee, right? So accordingly, you can empower me, and so that I can use that in your service, whatever I'm doing. So it won't happen, it won't change overnight, but as you go through, you will feel Krishna's reciprocation. You will see Krishna's help, and that will subside your anxiety, because Krishna will help. Krishna will be there right next to you, holding your hand, walking you through the process. So when you get a few experiences, right now you might not have that strong of experience, but when you get a few experiences of Krishna walking you through, you will be much more confident, and it's beautiful to have that kind of confidence. Like Prahlad Maharaj, he was never scared that his father could kill him. Although his father was the most powerful person in the universe, he was never scared because he had full experience of Lord Vishnu protecting him. So be like Prahlad Maharaj, but with experience. You will get that experience. When you pray and invite Krishna in your life, and your action becomes your prayer, right? You work as worship. Not work is worship, but work as worship. Does it help, Sai Prabhu?
Yes, sir. Yes. Thank you.
Where are you from?
I'm from Bangalore.
Bangalore. All right. Am I missing any questions? Okay. Okay, cool. All right, moving on to text 8. Somebody wants to read text 8?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm reading.
Mhm.
Text 8. Jnana, Vijnana, Triptatma, Kuta, Stho, Vijitendriya, Yukta, Iti, Uchyate, Yogi, Sama, Lostrasma, Kanchana. A person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi or mystic when he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-controlled. He sees everything, whether it be pebbles, stones, or gold, as the same. Thank you.
Thank you. So, person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi when he is fully satisfied with the virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. So, there's a difference between knowledge and realization. Does anybody know what that is? Gyan and Vigyan?
Yeah, I think knowledge is something that you acquire, and realization is more of an experiential knowledge that you acquire, is my understanding. Is that right?
Right, right. So knowledge is something that's theoretical, and realization is that aha moment when you apply the theory in practice, and like, oh, this is how it works. I get it, right? That's realization or Vigyan. So uh, it is said that when you share Krishna consciousness, it is good to speak from Vigyan, your realized knowledge, because then it's very powerful, because you are speaking with confidence about something you have experienced rather than something somebody else has experienced, or book knowledge or theory, right? So then it becomes very practical for you to speak to somebody because they can see that you applied it and they feel inspired. Seek an example who have applied this knowledge. So this being said, that such a person who has control over their mind, a person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi when is fully satisfied by the virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence in self-control. They're not controlled by anything else or anyone else. They're self-controlled. They do what they want to do rather than somebody influencing them to do what they should do. He sees everything, whether it's pebbles, stones, or gold, as the same, right? So there's equal vision rather than like, this is for self-gratification. This is not for self-gratification. Conscious everything is an instrument to use in service to God, right? The monkeys, the Vanar Sena, they took everything they could to throw at the Ravan's army, whether it's pebbles or trees or stones or mountains, whoever could uproot whatever they could uproot, they were just throwing and using that in service to Lord Ram to kill the demons on Ravana's side. So, just giving an example, that doesn't mean a pure devotee or a realized soul doesn't know the difference between gold and pebbles. Don't get me wrong. It's just for them, that is not a sense of sense gratification. That is not a source of happiness. As a result, it's like, oh, okay, this has this purpose and this has this purpose. So gold has a purpose for jewelry making or whatever it is, right? Or conductors in heavy equipment. And pebble has its purpose in being whatever, being in the garden perhaps. So one sees them as according to its purpose rather than, this is for my enjoyment, right? That's where things go wrong. What happens when you become a powerful person, whether it's a politician or a leader? You suddenly see, this is for my enjoyment. I'm going to use that for my sense gratification. And even if that is illegal, I have that selfish tendency. So I'm going to be lenient towards certain things and not so lenient towards certain things. I'm going to lenient towards people of my color, my faith, and not so lenient towards people who are from different color or different faith or different language or different background. All of these distinctions happen for those who are at a lower consciousness. But if a leader is Krishna conscious or transcendence, situated in transcendence, for them, its utility is the principle, right? Do the right thing, whether you're my family or not. Lord Ram, big example of that. Somebody criticized his wife. Now, if you criticize some politician's wife, you're going to probably, have a lot of consequences. Even if you write something funny on Facebook, they're going to fine you, try to jail you and all that. Lord Ram, on the other side, was not like that. He took that opportunity. Not that opportunity, he took that seriously, that somebody has said that Sita might not be a pure person. And down in history, who knows what people say about Sita Devi, right? So he created that situation where Sita went through that fire, and because she's pure, she came out of it. Of course, there's more layers to the story. It was Chaya Sita and, going in, real Sita coming out and all of that. So real Sita was never actually taken by Ravan. Ravan, abducted the Sita that was actually illusory Sita. But the point is, Lord Ram gave so much importance to the words of a common citizen, being the king that he was, actually the personality of Godhead. Still, family or not, he didn't make a distinction, right? It was painful for him, but he never made distinctions. And that's what transcendental knowledge looks like. That regardless, there's no nepotism, there is no partiality, there is no, any of that sort, because you're not thinking you're this body. So people who are connected to this body, color, blood relation, religion, all of that are all good. Everybody else is bad. That comes from that materialistic understanding. A spiritualist will never make the distinction between Hindu, Muslim, Christian, this, that. Oh, you're a God-loving person from another faith. I'm a God-loving person from the Vedic tradition. Fantastic. That's great. We are walking on the same path. Right? That's how we should think. And that's the teaching of Bhagavad Gita. That's where Krishna is not talking about any sect. If you see, we have come through chapter 6 now. He's never talking about any sect or any part of the world. He's talking about souls. He's talking very, very universal principles that apply to all living entities. Right? Okay. So no one can understand the transcendental nature of the name, form, quality, and pastimes of Sri Krishna through his materially contaminated senses. Only when one becomes spiritually saturated by transcendental service to the Lord are the transcendental names, forms, quality, and pastimes of the Lord revealed to him. Right? So the book knowledge without realization of supreme truth is useless. So when we try to understand Krishna, there are people who have PhDs on the Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, and they do not believe in God. They do not understand Krishna, even though they can quote verse after verse to you. They have the whole Bhagavad Gita memorized, but they don't understand bhakti because it is not something that you can forcefully acquire. It is something that becomes gifted by realization or revealed in your heart, right? Krishna's helping your gyan become vigyan. That vigyan part is Krishna's gift. And unless you're surrendered, unless you're aspiring to know Krishna, that vigyan won't happen. It'll be book knowledge. And you will take all this knowledge and twist it, turn it, and write books and give speeches and make a lot of money, like Devdutt Patnaik or all these other people who are out there, not criticizing anyone. But if you look at it, they're not talking about bhakti. They don't have access to love for God. They don't understand personality of God. They just understand some of the superficial principles, right? And that's all they have access to. But to go deep inside, one has to be a devotee. One has to have a relationship with Krishna. Only then they will understand. Just like when you have a relationship with your best friend or your brother or your parents, right? There are certain aspects, certain depth in that relationship where you understand each other. Even if you don't speak, somebody is upset or the other person is not had food today or not in a good mood or really happy. Something's going on. They're in love. They're dating someone. They don't have to tell you. You just look at them and like, what? Do you have somebody in your life? How? Because of the depth of relationship. So similarly, when you know Krishna, when you are eager to connect with Krishna, then you understand Krishna, and a lot of the Bhagavad Gita, the depth of knowledge becomes available to you through Vigyan, realized knowledge. Otherwise, it stays at theoretical knowledge, Gyan. And Gyanis, are not the same as Bhaktas. So there's Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, and Bhakti, the highest. At the end of this verse, end of the chapter, Krishna will say that. Right? Bhakti is the highest. So it is not possible to know Krishna with contaminated senses. So we have to purify ourselves through the devotional process, chanting, hearing, prasadam, philosophy, etc. Through that process, as we purify ourselves, as we come in contact with Krishna, it's like this. You take an iron rod, you put it in fire. What happens? The iron rod becomes red hot. You take that red hot iron rod and put it in touch paper, paper will burn. Why? Because the iron rod has picked up the quality of fire by being in contact with fire. So by studying the Bhagavad Gita, chanting Hare Krishna, eating prasadam, serving devotees, doing any Krishna conscious activities, you're getting purified. You're getting Krishnized like the hot iron rod. And thus, when you come in contact with others, they also get that same effect as they would if they were directly in touch with Krishna, because you're getting Krishnized through the process. And when you come in contact with somebody else, they also get bhakti. Bhakti comes from bhakta, right? Knowledge can come from anywhere, but bhakti is not something that you can acquire through karma, through any external means. It is only gifted from one devotee, one bhakta to another. It's gifted. It's brushed off. And the deeper the relationship, the deeper you have access to bhakti. If it doesn't make sense, you'll understand soon. Okay, the Bhagavad Gita is a science of Krishna consciousness. No one can become Krishna conscious simply by mundane scholarship. There's a difference between mundane scholarship and bhakti, right? One must be fortunate enough to associate with a person who is in pure consciousness. A Krishna conscious person has realized knowledge by the grace of Krishna because he is satisfied with pure devotional service. By realized knowledge, one becomes perfect. By transcendental knowledge, one can remain steady in his convictions, but by mere academic knowledge, one can be easily deluded and confused by apparent contradictions. So, for example, right, chapter 3, Krishna says, one who is not offering respects to higher authorities like the demigods are thieves, right? And chapter 7 or 8, Krishna says, one who worships the demigods, their mind is overcome by lust. You should worship only me. Now, one might see that as a contradiction. Like, what is happening? Krishna is saying this and that. Now, as an academician, you might see the contradiction. As a devotee, you understand that Krishna is taking us through step by step, layer by layer. At class 5 chemistry, you have the neutron and proton in the middle, and the electrons are all in circles. At class 11 or class 12 chemistry, those are not 2D, there's 3D, right? And there are subshells, and there are more details. There's electrons jumping from one subshell to another without going in the middle, right? You're introduced to more details. So class 5 chemistry book versus class 11 chemistry book, two different things. One who is illiterate would be like, they are in contradiction. One is 2D, one is 3D, right? So similarly, one who understands Krishna will understand chapter 3, he's just getting us started with you're not this body, your spirit, soul. In chapter 7, 8, he has already entered Bhakti Yoga, right? Where he's now giving, you know what? If you want material things, go to demigods. If you want lusty things, go to demigods. If you want Bhakti, if you want me, come to me. So he's offering something higher. As your consciousness has progressed, he's offering something higher. And for something higher, you have a higher cost. Exclusive devotion to Krishna, exclusive bhakti. So that's what. So one who understands Krishna will understand this. One who doesn't understand, one who's looking at it in the academic perspective will see it as contradiction. Oh, Krishna saying this and that. How does it work? Right? And there are many such contradictions, apparent contradictions that one doesn't understand unless one understands Krishna or Lord Ram. In Ramayana also, many times people get very confused by one or two things. And then they're like, Lord Ram, he's a chauvinistic person and this and that and all kinds of terrible things I see on social media. It's horrible because they don't understand Lord Ram. That's why, right? Okay. All right. I'm sure I'm going to get some very hard questions today. I'm not expert on Ramayana, and anybody going to heckle me on that, please understand. Okay. By transcendental knowledge, one can remain steady in his convictions, but by mere academic knowledge, one can be easily deluded and confused by apparent contradictions. It is the realized soul who is actually self-controlled because he is surrendered to Krishna. He is transcendental because he has nothing to do with mundane scholarship. For him, mundane scholarship and mental speculation, which may be as good as gold to others, are of no greater value than pebbles or stones. It's a very beautiful purport. Actually, Prabhupada takes the whole pebbles, stones, and gold idea because and gives it another angle to it. If you see, basically mundane scholarship, many people come to Bhagavad Gita asking. So we have a very strong selection process of who gets into Philosophy Friday. Either I know them or I know their background. I don't let people enter. I don't promote it on Facebook. That's why. A lot of people come for just the scholarship. They'll be rattoing, the verses. They'll be like showing off to people, look how much Sanskrit I know, and this and that. That's not what this is for. This is for establishing our loving relationship with God, right? That's what this is. That's the purpose of Philosophy Friday. So for those who find, for them, gold is scholarship, they'll find the academic learning and memorizing verses as gold. For us, I can hardly speak Sanskrit, as all of you know. None of us are very good at reading these verses in Sanskrit, but that's not important. What's important is learning the essence and the meaning of what Krishna is trying to tell us here. And if we can apply those principles, then we are the best of devotees. And one who has all the perfect Sanskrit going on, but doesn't apply these principles in their life, or smoking, drinking, and doing whatever they have to do, not saying those things are good or bad, not judging anyone, but that is pebbles for us, maybe gold for them, right? So it's different how we look at things depending on what is of value to us and what is of value to somebody else. If Miss Universe walks by, to a pig, it means nothing. Pig is very happy with his pig family, pig wife, pig kids. Like Miss Universe, I don't give a damn, right? But for somebody who's a young man, will be like, wow, Miss Universe, she's like amazing, right? So like that. For some, the same thing as pebbles. For some, it's gold. Okay, any questions on this verse? Oh, Kranti is finally asking. If you are humble, people usually take advantage of you, are arrogant, how to avoid the situation? So humility and arrogance, it's not a behavioral thing. Generally it is seen as, oh, it's a behavior where I'm like, ha, 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 oh, you're great. I am so fallen. That's what people think as humility. It's not. Humility is honesty, right? If you are, again, because I know, Kranti, you're running a business. So again, I'll give the example of firing someone. If you're firing someone, you can humbly fire someone, and not be taken advantage of. Or if you're negotiating with a venture capitalist about investment, you can humbly negotiate with them, right? Hey, what you're saying is unfair, and that doesn't make sense. We have done blah, blah, blah. We have come to this far, and this is our valuation, and this is where we are. So that's honesty. Pride, how does it look like? How dare you give us that valuation? Do you know who we are? Do you know how many good star ratings we have all over Google and Amazon and this and that? That's ego speaking, right? But when you're talking in facts and figures, that's humility. And what you might think humility looks like is, sure, you're going to give me 10% for 1 lakh. Yeah, go ahead, take my company, right? That's not humility. Humility is being honest. Humility is holding to the facts and figures and not getting swayed away by ego. Does it make sense, Kranti? Okay. You should never let anybody take advantage of you. That's not humility. You know, if somebody takes advantage of you, definitely stand up to them, and we should defend ourselves very strongly, because our humility is, Krishna is great, I'm small. That's our humility. But for somebody else that calls us, oh, you're a woman, or you're a weak gender, or whatever else, right? We don't have to accept that. We're like, hey, you know what? I've done more than you have done in your lifetime. We don't have to say that, but there are ways of dealing with those situations, standing up to people on facts and figures. But make sure that in our heart, we are not getting proud. We are not getting uh, carried away by those things that can flicker, that can change in our life. Just because I have a lot of money, I should not look down upon people and be like, oh, look at your life. You're such a loser. You couldn't do anything in your life. That's pride, right? So there is a fine line, and we have to be careful. It is absolutely okay to be aware that I have financial resources and something that Krishna has gifted me, and I have worked very hard for, and that's what my net worth is. But it's not okay. What's not okay is I am good and everybody else who have not come to that point are all losers, right? Looking down. That's pride. But being aware is not a bad thing. Okay. Any other questions? Akshat. Prabhuji, how to deal with non-devotee? With non-devotee, we can tolerate because it is for our betterment. Again, don't be judgmental. Devotee, non-devotee. Are we devotees? Really, can we say that? Are we really doing everything according to Bhagavad Gita? No, right? Not even myself. We are not devotees ourselves. So how can we call others non-devotee? So don't get in this mindset of us versus them. With that understanding, of course, you're at least taking steps in Krishna consciousness, and some others might not be. And they might not appreciate what you're doing, and you might appreciate what they're doing. The point is not to go around, showing people, look, I'm different. I don't do this and I don't do that, and I follow these rules, and I have I'm above you. That's not the point of all this. The point is to be happy in our relation with Krishna. If we have purity, and somebody tells us, hey, drink, or come gamble, or whatever, we're going to a strip club or whatever, I don't do that. Sorry, I'm not judging you for it, but I don't do that. That's not my upbringing. That's not my belief system. People have their belief system. A Muslim doesn't eat pork, a Jew doesn't eat pork, a Hindu doesn't eat beef, and people have their food habits. So you can say, in my Krishna consciousness, or in my system of faith, that's not something we do. And moving on with life, people respect you for being sense controlled. People will respect you for it, for having values in your life. I have lived through America, not drinking or eating any kind of nonsense things, having complete opportunity for it, and I have been respected. Initially, I was laughed at, no questions. Initially, I was laughed at, but eventually, I was respected for it. Wow, how can somebody continue holding on such strong values? And you know what happens after that is people trust you. Like, wow, if this person has such strong values, this person is trustworthy because he doesn't bend when there is pressure. So that's actually a very good thing. I hope that helps, Akshay. Bitan. Prabhu, can you end today's session by telling a Krishna story? Okay, we have 5 minutes. Let me see if anybody else has any questions.
Prabhu, just one thing. Could you please emphasize on the, or probably elucidate on the importance of having sadhu sangam, and what do you do if you do not have access to it?
Yeah. So there's a Bhagavatam verse that says, Parasparano kathanam pavanam bhagavadyashaha yatho mater nitho tishtir nivritir mito atmanaha. I find this very inspiring. What it says is Parasparano kathanam, that as you talk to each other, pavanam bhagavadyashaha, Bhagavad Yash, talking about the glories of God, it one inspires another, deepening their friendship, and thereby one inspires each other to give up bad habits, right? From today, I will stop doing blah, blah, blah that I had a bad habit of. And you say, well, I'll also give it up. So what happens is team spirit, right? We help each other become Krishna consciousness. Like for those of you know, my best friend is Ishwandanandana in the US, Edward. And he and I helped each other get over meat eating, come to 16 rounds of chanting and all of that, because it was always like helping each other. He would push me in one direction, I'll push him, and thereby we'll help each other move towards Krishna, right? Husband, wife, best friends, etc., etc. So it's important to have that kind of sadhu sangha, because like I said, bhakti is gifted. Bhakti is something that rubs off of people. It's not something that's earned. It is definitely that's gifted. So when you have sadhu sangha, through that sadhu sangha, you get the gifts, and you also get to watch the actions of the sadhu, thereby learning how to act in Krishna consciousness, not just from book knowledge, but from practical example. So yes, very, very important to have sadhu sangha. So you two should help each other out in Michigan. Talk about Krishna Katha. I know Harish can go all over, but bring him to. Anyway. All right, Devashi's strategy. If Krishna is within us, then whatever we are doing is being directed by Krishna. Then how can there be no Krishna friendship within us? Well, Krishna is guiding us, but are we listening? Right? When we're doing something that we shouldn't be doing, there's something within us that tells us, I'm not sure I should be doing that, but yeah, let it do it once. It's okay. It's only once, right? So guess what's happening? Krishna is giving us free will. Krishna is not stopping us. He's just, inner voice is there. But can we hear the inner voice? Can we hear Paramatma within our heart? And are we, it's us. It's choice that we make. We choose to listen or not. So the point is, yes, Krishna is within us. But do we choose to listen to him? Do we have the clear conscience to understand, is it our mind or is it Krishna? Do we have the knowledge to distinguish between the two? Because the mind is also very strong and powerfully screaming, I want this sense gratification, I want that sense gratification. And Krishna is also, guiding. But we choose to hear who we want to choose. So to understand whose voice is whose, mind or Krishna, rationalization or knowledge, right? That's why we need scriptures, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, scripture, Guru, and examples, right? And thereby we know that this is the right thing to do or not the right thing to do. Bitan had requested me to share a Krishna story. Sorry, nothing's coming to mind. But it's also time. So Bitan, maybe next week, if that's okay with you, we'll share the story. Okay, I'll think of something for you. Okay, all right. Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Hare Krishna, everyone. Have a good night.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dhanyavad.
Hare Krishna.